Hey, this is Joe Hernandez, the voice of Daruk and Yunobo in Zelda Breath of the Wild, asking you to subscribe to 𝐵𝐻𝐸𝐺𝐠 and listen to our interviews and episodes together on this Zelda podcast, the 𝐓𝐳𝐽𝐺𝐴Mcast. And for all the latest up-to-date news on your favorite Goron, be sure to follow me at Joe Hernandez VO.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the 𝐓𝐳𝐽𝐺𝐴Mcast episode 113. Today we have returning for the third time, maybe fourth, is Joe Hernandez, the voice of Daruk and Breath of the Wild and the just released Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So Joe, for everyone who does not know, and this may be their first time tuning in to one of our interviews with you, go ahead and introduce yourself for some stuff that you may not be known for outside of Zelda.
Oh, stuff that I may not be known for. Gosh, I was just in Spider-Man Miles Morales. You could hear me on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as Pesci. That was Season 5 Golden Wind. I was also on Kengan Ashura. If you got any Final Fantasy fans, I was in Final Fantasy Mobius. I'm also currently in Brave Exvius, War of the Visions. I was in the Crystal Chronicles remake too, that just came out not too long ago too. So I'm all over the place. I'm everywhere.
Sean was in Crystal Chronicles too, wasn't he?
I was just gonna say, yeah. Both Rivali and Daruk in that game.
I was lucky
fun
enough.
Little piece of trivia on that. Crystal Chronicles was directed also by Amy Mortellaro, who, as you know, directed Breath of the Wild.
Right, and he also voices King Rome, right?
No, that's Bill Rogers.
Okay,
Bill Rogers.
Was he the other director, or?
No. Bill is he's the voice of King Rome. He's also he's in a bunch of stuff, but most notably Pokemon. He's the voice of Brock in that.
Oh, okay.
I was actually reading on, I don't really remember where, it must have been some Wikipedia where fans can just change whatever, because whenever I was reading it, it said that it had the person listed as King Rome is also the voice director person. So I...
Oh, wow. No, that can't be right.
Yeah. Someone check into that. But anyways...
If it's on the internet, then it must be true.
Obviously. So, I guess to start off, like, after Breath of the Wild, everyone expected Breath of the Wild 2 to be next, but then all of a sudden, Hyrule Warriors gets announced, and now the duology, or however it's called, is now somewhat of a trilogy. So what was it like when you first got news that this was coming?
Well, the thing is, I didn't know it was coming. I had no idea, and I certainly make no assumptions when it comes to any additional sequels or spin-offs or prequels or however you want to slice it and all that stuff. So I can tell you that this was back in March-ish or so, maybe February. I had auditioned for something and they said, oh, well, it's very, classical kind of Lord of the Rings-esque, and it's like, oh, okay. And when you work in video games and audition as much as I do, you audition for a lot of stuff that's very similar in that style. So it's not as if you automatically go and think, oh my gosh, this has got to be the next Zelda game, because, there's so many other fantasy type games out there that already have like that. It's just its own dedicated genre. Yeah. So again, and when they were putting the auditions out for it, and like kind of, they never at any point said, oh, this is Hyrule Warriors, because most big games have a sort of a code name because they don't want spoilers to leak out and they don't want people tweeting and talking about it and stuff like that. So it's just very, very hush hush. And so it was used, there was a code name used for it. And, I'd been told, oh, hey, we booked you for this. You got it. We want to have you come in and record. And then, of course, COVID happened. And so it's like, oh, gosh. And it's a shame, because I was really looking forward to recording on this, whatever this medieval fantasy project was going to be, because I was like, I want to do it. And I was looking forward to it. And so COVID happens, and to give you some perspective as far as what was going on in the voiceover community, most of the studios here in LA shut down. Obviously COVID being what it is, and people need to take precautions, and confined spaces and all that other stuff. Like, it just, like, people were not recording at all. And so the voice talents themselves, most voice actors will have a booth at home. They have a studio, just in varying degrees of preparation and integration, and like how intricate it can be. Mine's is here. This is my booth right here. It's here. Let me turn on the lights for you a little bit, but I'll give you.
We get the tour.
A little bit. I mean, what it is, it's basically a walk-in closet that I converted, and soundproof the walls a little bit, and I've got it lined with the foam, and it's very dense, and so it serves very well. And so there was a little bit of I would call it almost an arms race within the voiceover community, where everybody was having to upgrade their studio systems here at home. Because that's kind of how you continue working if you can't go inside the studio. And so, people were buying up new laptops, new microphones, new, speakers, new sound cards, new, interfaces, all just everything. And so a lot of that stuff was just starting to fly off the shelves. I had made a couple of upgrades myself. And in the meantime, I had, continued working and everything. And at a certain point, they came back to me and said, "Hey, we want to record. What's your home setup like?" And I was like, "It's finally good now. Like, I can record from home. See, yay." And so this was probably around June, July. And, again, they never told me what it was. And I want to say probably about 2 days before, somebody says, "Oh yeah, that that generic medieval fantasy game that you were going to work on, it's Hyrule Warriors." And so I was like,
the bombshell there.
Okay. And we're bringing you back as Daruk, and this is what's going on. And so you kind of just, you have a moment where it's just like, thank God I get to come back and voice Daruk again. And it was like riding a bike, It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Recording from home was definitely a challenge, just because one of the biggest things that will separate just a regular old kind of thrown together booth with one of the more professionally made ones, or the ones that you'll find out in LA, is ventilation. My booth does not have any sort of ventilation.
Yeah.
We do not have air conditioning inside this booth. And when you're recording in Southern California in June and July in the middle of the day, it gets hot real fast. Real hot, real stuffy, real humid. So that was definitely a challenge. And when you're recording over the course of, 4 hours here and there, and, you keep going on, it's just it's almost, I don't want to say torture, because it isn't torture, because you're doing something that you love, but you are definitely paying for it. And not to go too graphic or anything like that, but I definitely shed a couple of layers of clothing, some articles of clothing, shall I say. May or may not.
It's all to get in character.
Yeah, well, and that's
You've seen the way Daruk dresses.
Yeah, and you're really not too far off, because I realized, I was like, wait, I'm kind of down to my skivvies right now, and I'm seeing Daruk walking around in his cutscenes, and he's got his little, I don't even know what you can call that.
I don't even know.
It's like
his Speedo, his loincloth,
loincloth is what I was trying to think of, because I was thinking like a Tarzan look.
Yeah. But and I kind of stopped, and I was like, wait a second, I'm pretty much in the same outfit that Daruk is in right now. So we got a little method on that. I'll say that.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So continue, Daniel.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned, them having code names and stuff. Previously, when we had you on, you had talked about how before Breath of the Wild they did a similar sort of thing. They didn't tell you that it was Breath of the Wild. They gave you, was it Hannibal was like the code name for the character, and gave you kind of a rough overview, but didn't tell you that you're a Goron man and everything. So in this case, was it a similar thing? Like, did they give you a different code name for the character and tell you, or what kind of did they tell you before?
It was a different code name for the title. And so again, I'm like going into my session, I'm thinking, okay, we're working on whatever this generic title is, and you know that, like, on a certain level, you know that whatever this generic title is probably isn't the actual name of the title, but you just you know, that's the name of the project that it's assigned to, and so you just go with it. And like I said, at a certain point, I think probably about a week before, they'd said, oh, hey, it's Hyrule Warriors. This is what you're doing. And it's like, oh, okay. Come to find out, Patricia didn't know what she was working on.
Oh, wow. I think, while she was Patricia, recording the script?
Obviously, like, Patricia Summers said she's the voice of Zelda, and she knew that she was reprising Zelda in some capacity, but she didn't know what it was exactly. Oh. And maybe it's because I'm a gamer and she isn't, and I kind of had to, like, break it down. I was like, no, it's Hyrule Warriors, it's this. You know, there's this old game that came out years ago, Dynasty Warriors, and it's kind of like in that style. And, like, you could kind of see, oh, okay, that's what's going on. She didn't know, like, what we were doing. And so I kind of filled in some of the gaps for her as best I could with my gaming knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you first heard of getting called for this project around March and then recording around June or July?
Yeah.
So do you think this the announcement ended up being around the same time the big Super Mario anniversary was? Do you think Hyrule Warriors, if not for the COVID and the closing of everything and E3, do you think this could have been something that they would have gotten to show off at E3 or another big place like that?
It's very, very possible. I mean, again, who's to say? I can just tell you that our timeline, at first, our timeline for everything was obviously kind of just set back just by COVID, because if you can't go in to record, then how are you supposed to have voice acting and so on and so forth? So there was that part. But once we did start recording, we had a very, very short window as far as, you know, like the deadline was like, we've got to have all the recordings done by such and such date. So it's tough to say, because processes like this you kind of have to be flexible. You kind of have to be fluid when it comes to things like that. Now, on the flip side of all that, I'll say this. When did Nintendo announce Hyrule Warriors? That was probably 3 months ago?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
And so to go from not knowing that a game is existing to announcing it to having it released within that short span of time, that's a testament to Nintendo and how well they kept things under wraps and you know, all of that, because I think this really kind of came out of left field in the best way possible, where it caught everybody by surprise. You know, usually in this business, whenever video games are being developed, and the, you know, development of some of these titles will take years and years and years, you know, things get leaked. You know, people hear about, oh, they're making a this again, or they're doing that, or they're working on a sequel to this, or, you know, you hear about stuff, you know, little bits and pieces of it. As far as I was concerned, I did not hear anything about Hyrule Warriors. Had no idea it was coming out, and I'm sure this is kind of the case with a lot of people. You know.
Yeah. This one was I think kept under wraps better than like a lot of the Mario stuff that they announced, which it was announced within pretty close proximity. All that stuff, almost all of it got leaked, and nothing from this one. But I did have a question. In Breath of the Wild, Daruk, you know, he's not really a playable character. He's mostly just there in the cutscenes and memories and stuff. Yeah. In this case, now he's in the front and center of the action. He's dead. Yeah, that's why he's not playable.
But you know, though.
but in this game, he's fully playable. He's really fun to play as well. on the recording side of things, having to, I guess, work with all the extra grunts that come with those actions and stuff, was it a very different experience from Breath of the Wild? Or
it was, but it wasn't. And I'll say this in a sense of, like, when I went into work on Hyrule, it was a joy coming back and revisiting this character. And, like, there were times where working this time around, I could still remember some of the notes and the direction that Jamie had given me 4 years ago. So again, just the delivery and the cadence and all of that stuff, it was great to just come back and revisit all of that. That being said, working on a character that was just doing cutscenes or just doing certain stuff, to doing a player that is like active and in combat and doing all that stuff, is drastically different. And I've done a lot of other video games as well where there's a lot of combat and hollering and action, and you're punching and kicking and getting punched and getting kicked and all that stuff. With this one, the challenge was sometimes you're very held to a very small window on certain things. So, like, the punches you take or the lines that you deliver, they want it to be the same length of time as the Japanese counterpart is. So sometimes you're working on you have literally a second to deliver a line, or you have a second and a half, or 2 seconds, or half a second, or 3/4 of a second. So again, you're threading the needle sometimes on your delivery. I can tell you that my natural inclination as Daruk is to take as much time as possible, but you also have to consider, first of all, we're fighting, we're in action, there's combat, you're getting hit, there's all this other stuff that's going on. And again, when you kind of have to match up to what is going on in the Japanese version, you really, really just kind of have to thread that needle. So to me, that was a bit of a challenge.
That makes sense.
Yeah, one of the hardest things, which I guess most voice actors are used to by now after they've been in for a while, is matching the lip flaps of the other characters.
Yeah.
Or other voice actors. So I imagine, like, coming up with completely different words and syllables and everything to try and match perfectly. And then, everyone, all the writers have to take the hard work of actually coming up with lines that end up giving the same meaning, but it still matches the same amount of syllables and everything. And then it's your job to try and make it sound like you're not talking really fast just to get it out, but it sounds natural. So I imagine, especially when you're doing...
That is dubbing in a nutshell right there. I mean, just trying to get it and try to get it to make sense, and the timing, and like you said, and the lip flaps, and the delivery, and all of that stuff. It's a very technical way of approaching voiceover, which I would consider it a skill set in of its own. And so you take all of that stuff that you just mentioned, and now you're working from home. Now, instead of having like a giant 36-inch monitor or 48-inch monitor that you're working off of as far as trying to match the flips, I'm doing it on my iPad. So again, you're trying to be technical, but you're also limited by what you have at your disposal, just here in your own sort of made up, concoctions.
Right. And were you left on your own, or like was a director or someone on Skype?
No. We had the entire team there. I mean, we had we were doing it. I want to say over Source Connect. But yeah, they had an engineer on there, they had the director, they had the producers, like there were people from Nintendo listening in, so I could hear them all patched in on my headset here. And so, you hear the entire dialogue of the entire team, and that's one of the beautiful things about the technology that we have right now, that we quite frankly could not have done this 20 years ago. I mean, even really 10 or 15 years ago, there'd be no way to do what we did. And it's great that we're able to sort of be able to have, an entire recording session, and really just even on another level where it's like, I recorded my lines for this game here at home. Like, to me, that's so surreal. Like,
that has to make it a bit more special.
It does make it very special. Like, it really, really does. And from what I've seen in the clips and the gameplay and all that, it sounds pretty seamless. So that's a credit to the engineering team and the sound team, and like I said, the directors and the producers and everybody that put in all of those hours that went in to make this game what it was.
Yeah, I imagine there was a lot of just getting everything set up and having to tweak a bunch of stuff to get it as perfect to the people on the other end as possible.
Yeah, one of the challenges, just as a voice actor in general, is you can't just be a voice actor. Being the actor in this equation is just one part of it. But if you want to complete your skill set, you kind of need to be your own engineer. You kind of need to be your own writer and your director sometimes. Sometimes you need to be your own social media guy. Sometimes you need to be your own, you wear several different hats in this industry. And right now during COVID, you really, really need to wear several different hats as far as the technical side of all that stuff. So, we're kind of sometimes left to our own devices, but thank goodness that we, when you're working on projects such as this, you have teams of sound engineers and, like I said, directors and producers that are there to make sure that you succeed, because when you succeed, the project succeeds.
Yeah, there was a bit of confusion early on, like when the first couple of trailers released, to where Daniel and I think we spoke about it on a previous podcast episode, where some people in the comments were like, "Oh, Daruk sounds a bit different," and in our heads we were like, "No, it sounds the same. Maybe it's just been a while since you played Breath of the Wild." But but
also like someone just talking to their friend, like Daruk, on the Divine Beast, and I remember talking to Link, the way that you would just speak naturally to your friend versus the way you'd probably be shouting while punching someone in the face is you're going to sound a little more exasperated in one versus the other. From Breath to where we're at right now with Hyrule, I don't think they pitched him down as much as before. So you're hearing more of my natural voice, I would say, whereas before they did do a little bit of EQ play on it. But I feel like with the dialogue and with a lot of the cinematics, I feel like, one, we're fleshing out the characters more and more, but it also gives the opportunity to really play with the performance if you're not messing with some of the EQ stuff. If you're not really getting into the levels and all that stuff. So I feel like I was able to kind of have a little bit more free reign with my performance this go around.
That's it for now, but a lot of rumors, news, and details are slowly leaking out. So please, stay subscribed and notified, and join our Discord to make sure you stay up to date on all Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 news. And you can find our Zelda podcast, the 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫, here on YouTube and on iTunes, where we have had many guests who have worked on the Zelda series and have shared a lot of amazing stories about voice acting, such as Patricia Somerset voice acting as Zelda, Mike Drucker on Zelda's writing or translation team, coming up with the jokes in the game, stories behind the names of characters that he created. Please subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you. If you are a fan of our Zelda videos like this, Zelda Theories, our Zelda podcast, the 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐴 on iTunes, we would all really appreciate your support at patreon.com/GameOverJesse. That and buying our t-shirts will get you and your YouTube or Twitch a shout out every week on our 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐴. And if you send in a photo of yourself in our Game Over Jesse or 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐭𝐴 t-shirt, we can use it for promotion at the end of some of our videos.